just to kind of construct the frame on which this family is going to be hosted. So I'm just going to go here to new conceptual mass and choose a metric mass, open that up, and here we have a regular massing environment. And then to make it interesting, I'm going to go to south elevation and create a couple of reference planes and that are kind of slanted a bit, kind of like this, just to give us a bit more complexity of shape. I'm just going to mirror this to the other side using the mirror tool with a pick axis option. MM is the shortcut for that, and I'm just going to go to modify, go into 3D, and this is how that looks like. Now I'm going to select the first reference plane, and here for the name, let's call it reference plane A, and for the second one, let's call this one reference plane B. And I'm just going to hit apply. I just need to have some sort of a name for these two reference planes so I can then reference that name when creating some geometry and hosting it upon these reference planes. So I'm just going to go here to this right side, and now let's start modeling. So I'm going to go here with a reference line, and I'm just going to choose a spline through points. So I'm going to kind of create just a weird shape like this. Go to modify to cancel out of that command. And now I'm just going to switch to a arc and just go to reference. And then for the arc, let's go something like this. Oops, I went with a line. When you switch from, if I go here to arc and it's a model arc, and I go then to reference, it switches to the line. So that's where I made a mistake. So I'm going to go back with an arc. And here, let's go here with set work plane and make sure that we're on reference plane. Let's go with reference plane B. Okay, we're in the arc, and let's create that arc. Let's see just where this is hosted. So if I go into 3D, oh, I am in 3D. Yeah, so it's hosted on that reference plane B. It looks kind of like a whale. So let's create a similar shape on the other side. Maybe extend this, grab this dot over here, like this. Maybe extend it a bit. Let's not go too wild with the shape. Okay, so I'm going to go back to right, and here I'm just going to go with a spline, reference, spline, and then here go draw on work plane, and I'm going to pick a work plane A. So I'm just going to go like this, kind of trying to create a similar shape as that one, but later on we'll be able to change it, don't worry. And let's go like this. And let's go to modify to cancel out of that. Now let's go with a reference arc, and again make sure that draw on reference plane is selected over here. So you want to have this selected instead of this. This is just going to pick a random plane that it kind of tries to figure out where you want to place it, but I like to make sure that I place it on the right one. So I go draw on work plane, and here let's set it to reference plane A, and let's do a similar arc as we do over here, kind of like this. Okay, so we've got these two arcs and two splines, and if I just orbit around, yeah, it looks kind of like that. And we can even select these reference planes, maybe bring it a bit closer together. Yeah, I'm just using the arrow keys in this case to kind of bring it together. Okay, so we've got this kind of whale-ish shape, and it looks really good. So what I want to do is I want to create some profiles along these kind of lines. So I want to have some sort of a profile that goes over here connecting these four, and then a profile maybe here, and a profile here, and a profile in the end. And then I want to connect that. So how do you do that? Well, for that we can create an adaptive family that's going to have some shape handle points that we're going to be able to use to really precisely and organically model the shape that we want to have for maybe this object over here. So for that, let's go here to File, New. So I'm going to be starting a new family, and here let's scroll down and find Metric Generic Model Adaptive. So I'm just going to select that, go into Open, and here we go. So first thing we need to do is place 4 points. So for each of these lines, we want to have 1 point hosted on those lines. So what I'm going to do over here is just go with point, and then place 1, 2, 3, 4. Once you have these points, let's just select them and go here into Adaptive Component and check that. So now these are adaptive points. Now what you need to remember is the numbering. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. And you need to remember this sequence because you're going to be using that sequence when you're loading this into the model. So over here we've got 4 lines, so let's say it's going to go from line 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just remember that sequence. Now go back over here. So here is a 1, 2. So 1, 2 is that bottom line. So 1, 2 is between these two arcs, and that one I want to be straight. So I'm just going to select the first one, hold the control, select the second one, and just go here to spline through points, and it's going to connect it with a line. Now make sure you leave these as regular lines, so don't use reference lines for this. Just make sure you're using regular lines. Then switch to spline through points, and here, as you can see, it doesn't really have that 3D snapping as regular lines do, so you don't need to use 3D snapping. You just go spline through points and it's immediately going to use 3D snapping. And then just go from here, one click. Now I'm going to click kind of on the inside a bit to give it a bit of a kind of a arc shape, and then click on this point, host it there, go to modify to complete the command. Then you go again to spline through points. Again, you go from here. In this case, I'm going to go and kind of create an arc in a different direction, but again, make sure you don't click on this reference plane, so just kind of miss it just a little bit. It's going to mess it up if you click it. And then click here at a point. Go to modify to finish. And let's just kind of copy this arc on the other side. So go from here, somewhere here, and then finish it off. Go to modify. Okay, there we go. So we've got this kind of a weird looking profile family, and don't worry, it's going to look really cool once we load it in and we finish everything. One more thing before we load this into the project, you need to select these 3 points, the ones that are basically controlling the arc. In this case, the spline, but it is really forming an arc. And if you can't select one of the points, you just kind of tab a few times and then hold the control and then select it. Now I'm going to go here to the properties panel, scroll down a bit, and here for the adaptive component, make sure you change the point from a reference point into a shape handle point. Now what this is going to allow us is we're going to use these 4 points to host our profile family on these lines, and then we're going to be using these shape handle points to basically give the shape of this profile. So what I'm going to be doing now is loading this into the project. So let's go here into load into project, make sure you're in 3D, and now what you need to do is just go ahead and host it really near the ends of these lines, and then just remember the sequence in which we've created those numbers. So this should be number 1, this should be number 2, this should be number 3, and this should be number 4. Now if I go here to modify and finish this, it's going to look a bit weird. Maybe you did not really want to have this type of a shape. Maybe this is too much of an arc, and these as well. Actually, all these 3 arcs look kind of like an overkill. So what I have an option to do now is using these shape handle points, I can find the point, select just the point, and then I can move it in space. So I can kind of bring it down a bit, move this one a bit, maybe like that. Go ahead to the other side, find this one, move it a bit like that. And there we go. So this profile looks really good now. Now what I'm going to do is just hold the control key and then select this profile and move it. And as you can see, it's not going to move it, it's going to actually copy it. So maybe move it to here, maybe like that. Hold the control, maybe create another one over here. Hold the control, maybe another one over here, and it's going to look really weird now, but don't worry, we're going to fix that. And yeah, before we create the final 2 ones, let's fix these ones first. So here, first for this arc, let's use this point, kind of place it like that, use this point, kind of play around, place it like this. Yeah, let's go with this point, place it maybe like that. Okay, our whale is taking shape. Let's go to the next one. So go for the top one, and the point, as you can see, is all the way here. So kind of hover over it, maybe bring it up a bit, just using this. Yeah, kind of like that. Now this one is way out of whack, so let's move that one in like that. And this one is completely on the other side, so let's select that one and move it into a correct place. Okay, so this looks nice now. Now we can continue on to these. Again, this is now completely out of control, so select this point and kind of move it back. Just make sure you're using the correct lines. So in this case, I'm using this one, so it's kind of moving it on this axis and this axis as well. So that's kind of making it a bit easier to manipulate. Then let's select this line. Again, I'm going to go and select that kind of corner, make it like this. And let's do the same thing over here. Orbit around and place it over here. And as you can see, these lines are kind of going in weird directions. You can actually fix that. You don't have to, but if it's kind of annoying, you can kind of bring it back like this. Same thing with this one, kind of bring it back like that, and this one as well. Kind of straighten it out a bit. Okay, so we've got this one, and let's just use that control key to copy this. So just drag it over here, and let's do the final one over here, like that. Okay, so let's fix this one just a bit. So select this point, kinda drag it over. Select this point, drag it over there, and this point as well. Okay, this point is completely out of control right now, so let's bring it back. Maybe like this. Okay, it looks a lot better now. And let's fix the final one, so that's this one. So maybe like this. The top one. Well, the top one can go back a bit. And then maybe like this. Yeah, it already looks better. And this one is again on the other side, so let's bring it in a bit like this. Maybe a bit back. Okay, so this is kind of taking shape. Maybe this one we can bring in just a bit back. Okay, there we go. So we've got these kind of profile shapes, and what I'm going to do now is just select the profiles or our kind of new families that we've inserted and go create form. And there we go. So we've got our whale form created. And what's great about this is now you can actually select these lines, the original lines, and you can play around with those, and it's actually going to change the shape. So if I can reshape this spline like that, or I can maybe bring it in a bit. Maybe I can reshape this arc by going to this middle line of the arc. Okay, it kind of messed up a bit. So you can't really move it too much, but you can make some adjustments, and as long as Revit can figure out how to solve it, it's going to make that shape. And also you can change each profile, so I can go over here to this shape panel and maybe bow it out a bit. And as you can see, we've made that change now. Maybe we can do the same thing with this one. Let's see. Kind of like that. So you can kind of play around and organically shape your manually organically shape your form. So it's a really good process that allows you to kind of completely change the shape of your mass, and it's completely organic. You don't have any parameters. It's not annoying where you have to insert numbers. It's really kind of a free form process for modeling massing within Revit, and it's really good for creating kind of wild geometry like we have with this whale. So we've actually completely changed this side now. This one is kind of going on the inside with an arc, and this one is going on the outside. So yeah, that's how you use these basically placement points as well as shape handle points to create profiles that you can then host on some line work, and then you can really play around and really get some amazing shapes from Revit.